Hi everyone, it's a nice countdown. Right, thanks for tuning in to Writing Crime Fiction. My name is Ross Greenwood, I'm English. We also have John Nicholl, who's Welsh, he's at the bottom there, and Owen Mullen, who's Scottish. So we're all crime writers. John used to be in the police, used to be in social services, used to be work for the NSPCC. I worked in telesales. I was also a prison officer for 4 years, and I'm now a magistrate. And Owen has been a rock star at some point. So all nefarious careers and pretty good balance there, I think, as well. So we should be able to write some authentic crime fiction. We've got a few questions we're going to answer as we go along. If you do want to ask any questions, you can use the comments thing on the right of the box, and we'll perhaps answer those some of those as we go along. Otherwise, we will go onto the book and tonic thing on Facebook, and we'll answer the questions now. Right, so we'll start off with Owen. If you'd like to tell us what you've written so far and a little bit about your career path as a novelist.
All right, okay, thanks. Hi, Ross. Hi, John. Oh, I've written, I guess, 15 books, a few that haven't been published. In September, my 12th book, Thief, has been published, and that'll be a dozen. I started off like everyone else. I started off and had years and years when no one wanted to know me, tons of rejection. You kind of get used to that, Never really thought about stopping, though perhaps I should have. It would been more sensible to pack it in. But I kept going, and eventually I self-published. Then I got another publisher, and unfortunately I met, through you actually, Ross, I met Sarah, and I ended up with Greenwood.
Okay, John?
Very similar to Owen, really, in terms of numbers. I've just finished writing number 14. Previously published by Bloodhound and joined Greenwood relatively recently. Very glad to have made the move. Started writing almost by accident, really. I was involved in investigating a major organised abuse ring many years ago. Sitting down with a psychologist, talking about the psychological impact of that type of work on the workers involved, myself included. She suggested writing some of those experiences down. That became my first book. Self-published it initially. It did crazy well, far better than I could ever have imagined, which was a bit of a miracle, really, as I didn't really have a clue what I was doing in terms of marketing, etc. That resulted in signing with an agent and then a publishing deal. That book was originally called White is the Coldest Colour, and it's now been republished by Greenwood with the title The Doctor, along with some other books to my backlist, and also some new titles later in the summer. So
I've seen them on the line. They're coming soon, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all coming thick and fast at the moment. Greenwood are bringing them out at quite a rapid rate. So it's all good.
Cool. I mean, we've all actually got very similar backgrounds. I had an idea for a book a while ago, and then I did a little bit of it, but I couldn't think of any edge. And then I worked in the prison, and obviously I've got a lot of ideas there. But also, it's almost, I think, a little bit therapeutic as well, with getting that some of that stuff down. People haven't got a clue about what prison's like, and I didn't either. So that's enabled me to have a little bit of insight into those works. But again, I was self-published to start with. I went to Greenwood as well, Bloodhound as well, and then ended up at Greenwood as well. So all quite similar. Right, we'll go to the next question. So we'll go back to Owen again. What actually made you want to be a writer?
I think what made me want to be a writer, I think somewhere deep inside there was a kind of suspicion that I would one day do this. As a kid, apparently, I used to talk about it. Don't remember much about it. But when I moved to Crete, long days, plenty of time. I woke up one morning. This is actually the true story. I woke up one morning. I said to my wife, Christine, I think I'll write a book. And she said, do you think that's a great idea? And it's a lot of work. So I wrote a short story. And to my great surprise, it was terrible. But I kept going. because I had this idea out of nowhere. I had an idea to write a story set in Pakistan, and that became Out of the Silence. It took 8 years to get that book published. That's what I'm saying. Maybe I should have thought about stopping before then. And when I wrote it, I thought, because I'm naive about everything, really, I thought I'll never have as good an idea as that again. And halfway through that book, I had the start and I had the end, and I didn't know how to get the two to join up. So Christine started to get involved, and I'm fortunate in this respect that I'm married to a woman who has never seen a plot that she can't resolve. So she's got tons of great ideas, which I steal liberally. I give her a kind of modicum of credit in the back of the book. And that's how it all began. I didn't have any idea about marketing, although I'm a marketeer. I didn't think about I just wrote what came to me. I didn't think, is this the right genre? Is this a popular thing? And that was actually a mistake. It would have been better if I'd been able to take a more targeted approach to what I was trying to create. But I really didn't do that. And I have to say that writing that book was great fun. It isn't always great fun, but it was fun writing that book because I was very keen. I was very young at it. I was constantly surprised that I could do it, really. I didn't know that. I'd never been to any creative writing classes or anything like that. So it was all just a big adventure for me. And then I went on, after that, I wrote a book in New Orleans. And that was my first detective story. And I got an agent, kind of, and she said, I'll never be able to sell you unless you write something in Scotland, set in Scotland, Owen. And that's when I wrote the first of the Charlie Cameron books. And really that's what began for me. Everything, but because the other book I put aside, it was just too hard. She said I couldn't sell it in 100 years, which wasn't the most encouraging thing I'd ever heard.
No, I bet the
92 years out though.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think you start off writing kind of what you know, but then ultimately a lot of us want to be commercial fiction writers and want to, do it for a career and have some success. So you really need to write something that is, commercial. So like romance or crime. And, I'm not so with a romance myself, but John, what about you? What made you want to be a writer?
It's a bit like I said earlier, really. It happened almost by accident. I was sitting down talking to this psychologist. He said, write some of your experiences down, really as a therapeutic exercise. So I started doing that. And once I started, it just flowed. It was almost as if I was driven to write it. So what was a diary of sorts gradually became a fictional novel. Took 2 years, the first one. Never really thought it was going to be a book. Someone suggested self-publishing, which I did. It went straight into the Amazon top 100 in the UK in, I think it was 2 weeks. Ended up as with a little orange bestseller badge that Amazon give books in. I think it was in 5 countries. It was made into an audiobook, which unbelievably went into the Audible top 50 on publication day. So it was all just a complete shock to me, really. I hadn't expected anything like that to happen. And then I was under the sort of misguided impression that that's just what happened to every book. So when I self-published my second one, I thought, okay, it's just going to do the same. But of course it didn't. And that was a bit discouraging, but I kept going. Ended up with an agent, a guy called Toby Mundy, who founded Atlantic Books. He basically, because White had sold well, he was interested in representing me, and ended up then, as you did with Ross, with Bloodhound. Left Bloodhound relatively recently after them publishing several thrillers, which are all based on my real life experience, either as a young police officer or as a child protection social work manager. Been with Boulder now for a few months and carrying on writing in the same genre, really.
Cool. I mean, again, it's all very similar, but I didn't really want to be a writer. I wanted to write a book. I just wanted to hold it, and and I quite like the idea. I had a friend who who wrote a book about tax planning or something, some awful thing. But he used to get a commission check every year that was only about 20 quid. So I think only about 4 people in the world used to read it. But I thought that was really cool, and I liked the idea of it. So, and that was kind of the motivation, just to have a book and hold it and leave something. And again, it's like it kind of snowballs if you're lucky. And then often when you're expecting things that don't happen, and then just when you're thinking, maybe I'm going to give up, or the snow killer for me, I was thinking, well, I'm just going to write that, and then maybe I'll, lose some weight and get fit. But then it did really well, unexpectedly, and then I've, carried on writing and not got fit. So I guess that's just the way things work out. Yes. Right. Okay. I'll skip the next question about writing crime fiction. We've done that. So we'll go to John this time first. How important is researching settings for a crime novel? So I think you've set some in Wales, and I think this is kind of a Bee Gees question about the Massachusetts song. Can you write a good book about an area if you've never actually been there like them?
I tend to write, all my books are set in Wales, primarily, in an area I know really well, and where I've grown up, locations I've visited many times, but also I build other locations into the stories as well. Like one of the books is part set in Barbados. I was lucky enough to spend 3 weeks there, sort of visiting different places on the island, making notes, writing a bit of the book there. So one of the books, as I say, is set in the Caribbean, or at least part set, although the bulk of that book is still set in Wales. And there's another book I've just written, which is going to be coming out late in the year, which is part set in Lanzarote, which my wife and I visited for the first time last winter, and spent 3 weeks again, going to various locations, getting to know the place. So personally, I only tend to write about places I've actually been.
Okay, cool. There's quite a lot of Welsh fiction floating around. Simon McLeave did a series that was very well received, and there's Anglesey was written about.
Yeah, Anglesey's beautiful, and Simon's a brilliant writer, and he's written a load of good stuff and sells incredibly well. There's other Welsh writers, Phil Rowlands, Nigel Williams. There's quite a few of us, really.
Cool. Owen?
Well, I remember an anecdote I heard one time about Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier when they were filming Marathon Man. In the book, the character is sleep deprived for 72 hours, and because Dustin Hoffman was a method actor or whatever he was, he deprived himself of sleep for 72 hours. So he's in the rehearsal studio and he's staggering around because he can hardly stand up. And Olivier said, why don't you try just acting, dear boy? And I thought, there's something to it. I think it's, I think you can write a book somewhere if you haven't been, because you just use your imagination. When you research something, and I know that's a question that's coming up, that potentially adds dimensions to it and layers to it that perhaps maybe an authenticity that it would otherwise lack. But I feel that if you're a writer, people get killed and murdered and whatever. I've never killed anyone. Well, maybe when I sing, but I've never done these things. It doesn't deter me for 1 second. So I think if you're using your imagination, that's fine. And ultimately, it's what comes out at the end. Is it a believable thing? So if it is, it's a success, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we do believe you, Owen, even though your books are very plausible. So you've got that right. But I guess I think I'm the same. The plausibility is so important, isn't it? And if you're writing about an area, then you do have that added bit of credibility about it. And it's probably easier to write. I've just saw Jessica Redland pop up in there, but she's created somewhere nearby that's very similar. So that's, I guess, another option. But the more you write, I think the first book you write is always very semi-autobiographical. They're just re-releasing Chancer, which was called Lazy Blood, and that's very much a story kind of about me and or someone similar to me, much naughtier than me. So that's basically how you end up starting writing. But then as you go on more, you realize that there are no boundaries and you can really do anything. And the more books you write, the better you get, the more you understand what works and what doesn't work. You still might write the odd one that doesn't sell. That's just the way it goes. But basically, you can really do anything. I would like to write one in America, set in America, because it's a much bigger market. But I've only ever been to Vegas, and I'm not sure that's suitable. I can't remember much about it either. But that's basically where I'm at with that. So maybe in the future. Right. Okay. This is quite important for all three of us, actually, because we all write series. John, do you decide early on if you're writing a series? Well, I guess that's from now on, maybe, or you're happy to do a standalone and see where it goes?
I tend to have characters that are consistent between the books. So even if it's a standalone, often a character from one of the series will pop into that story. One of the detectives, for example. When I wrote the first book, I certainly didn't expect it to be a series. It was, as I say, it was a therapeutic exercise, really, and ended up as a psychological thriller. Ended up as a 3-book series, one of which is only just been written. So the first one was written in 2015, just finally come around to writing the third one, which is going to be called The Father. And that's out for pre-order at the moment. So there's the doctor, followed by the wife, followed by the father. Some of the books are series. I've written 4 D.I. Gareth Gravel books. There's a D.I. Laura Kesey, which was named after the author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So she appears in several of the books, but I think any of the books I've written could be read as a standalone. I don't think they necessarily have to be read in order or as part of a series. They can be, obviously, and some people like to do that. But I don't feel strongly that books need, by necessity, to be part of a series, even if the same detectives are involved. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, was it actually? I suppose 7 years is quite a long time, isn't it? Did you age him 7 years in the series as well, or?
Yeah, I mean, in the first book, which is also available for pre-order at the moment, called The Doctor. It's about a boy who's targeted by a predatory paedophile who happens to be working as a consultant child psychiatrist. Book 2, then, which is also a pre-order, called The Wife. After I wrote that book, a number of people asked me how the psychiatrist's name is Galbraith, Dr. David Galbraith. He's got a wife called Cynthia. A number of people asked me, particularly people who've been through those sort of experiences themselves as children, how could a woman like Cynthia, an intelligent woman, stay with this monster of a man, Galbraith? So book 2, The Wife, is effectively her diary, in which I try to explain coercive control and how abusive men can dominate and influence partners, women, to such an extent that it almost controls their thoughts. Always intended to write a 3rd book, which was going to be the boy's story in his own words, but always struggled with the idea of speaking with a child's voice. So what I eventually decided to do, and it's going through the editing process at the moment, is to write it with him now. It's a good number of years on. He was 7 in the original book. He's now an adult. He's working as a journalist. He revisits his past by interviewing a number of key people from that time to try and make sense of what happened with unexpected and quite shocking consequences. So he's not a child anymore. He's a guy in his 30s, got his own child, a wife, but is still haunted by what happened all those years ago, and much as the way I did, in a way, really, in writing the first book, writes a book to try and come to terms with some of his experiences.
Well, I guess that's another angle, that some of the stuff we write can be quite triggering for many people. So I'm constantly aware of that as well. But Owen, you've done a few series, haven't you?
Yes, I've done a couple of series, but I didn't intend them to be series right at the beginning. All I was trying to do was write a good read. For example, the book that became Family started life as something called The Lucky Bastards Club. And really it was just exploring the dynamics of a South London gangster family, 2 brothers and a sister. and kind of halfway through, you start to realise this could go further, more could happen. Maybe there's a lot more legs to this. With Charlie Cameron, which is the other series, there's Charlie and there's two or three other people in the book, and like John, these people they reoccur. They're the kind of nucleus of the action and of all the banter and the relationships. And again, once you've written the first one and finished it and it's come out all right for you, when you're thinking about writing something else, they're already there. It's almost, I don't like when people say the characters take over. That doesn't work for me. But it is almost as if they're standing in the next room waiting for you to give them something else to do, because you've already created them. And when you're writing a series, of course, there is that greater opportunity to develop the people, to develop the characters, because you get time, because you get pages. So no, I didn't start off writing a series, but I do understand that there's great value if you happen to write Sherlock Holmes or create John Rebus, somebody like that.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. So the Snow Killer idea I had was that's how I ended up doing the detective thing. I just had this kind of a slightly cheesy idea about writing a killer who killed when it snowed, so like concealing the evidence and stuff. And so the idea was to do a snow killer. It was Valentine killer and then Halloween killer, but it somehow morphed from that. But I mean, ladies just put on there, what's more important when you're writing a book, the plot or the characters, to tie in with that? And and she, I've just been to Bristol Crime Fest and spoke to people there, and I think a lot of it is the characters. Even some of the books that they've maybe got slightly weaker storylines, if they've been running for a long time, that people just love to check in with those characters again. And once you've got in with the series, it's often easier to keep that ticking over. I've got a bit of an issue at the moment with, I've been thinking about finishing the Barton series. So the Santa Killer, which is out soon, is potentially the last now. But obviously finishing a series is, can be quite traumatic as well. And thinking about ending that and starting something new. So, I mean, if you go back to the Charlie Cameron series, I mean, I love those, that book, some great characters in there in the pub and all the rest of it. Have you, is that the end of that, or are there more to come, or?
Well, there's 4 in the Charlie Cameron series, and thanks for reading it, Rose. There's 4 in the series, but at the moment I've decided to take a different turn and write something else, write something more of a psychological thriller. And that has its own challenges, because the voices I need to mine are different voices, different characters, and added to that, the female. So there's quite a few challenges in there. I'm really only at the beginning of it, but what I wrote today won't do. I don't know if you've both ever been there. I've written it and I read it and I said, that's fine, but we're not looking for fine, so we'll be having a fresh start.
Okay.
It's a bit depressing, isn't it? One of the things that happened to me was with Insider, which is the second in the Glass Family series. I'd written 29,500 words, and my wife Christine, who'd worked on it with me, she said, print it all out and I'll read it from page 1 to page whatever it was. So she read the whole thing and said, it's good, but it's not the follow-on to the first book. So I had to scrap the whole thing.
Oh, no way.
Scrap the whole thing and start again. She was right. She didn't just say that. She gave me 15 reasons why that was the case. And the voices weren't the same. The characters weren't the same. So I managed to cannibalize about 6,000 words from those 29,000 and started again. I do think, I'm sure you both agree, when you rewrite something, it always is better than the first time. The language is better, the impact is better. It's just better because you're working harder at it, I guess.
Yeah, I think you're right.
John, have you ever had any 30,000 rewrites or anything like that?
I had a complete disaster with the first book, which is why it took 2 years to write, to be honest. I'm resisting the impulse to swear at the moment when I remember it. I had an old Microsoft computer that basically I'd written the book, or at least I'd written about half of it, and all of a sudden, line by line, it started deleting itself. And nothing I could do would stop that happening. So I basically was sitting there looking at my laptop, watching my book disappear line by line. And after about literally 15 minutes, it was gone. So this book I'd spent literally months doing. Crazily, I hadn't backed it up either, which is a hard lesson learned. I had to start again, but basically redo the damn thing.
Wow.
Wow. That was, I bet there's a lot of whiskey drunk shortly after that, wasn't there?
Yes.
Yes.
And I knew that. Yeah. So obviously now I got paranoid about backing things. Just horrendous, really.
I had a bit of a disaster one time. I'd written about 4 books and I had them all on a stick. And I lost the stick. I lost it in the street outside my son's house. And that was a disaster. 3 days later, I looked down and there it is, lying at the side of the camp or something. And it was still working, it was still fine. But for 3 days, I thought that would have been that would have been the decision I've taken. Forget about it.
So knock this writing thing on the head and do something normal, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, absolutely.
Incredibly lucky to find it again. I mean, that's all props to his fate.
There's people have left like whole manuscripts on trains and everything, haven't they? So
that's what I was. Yeah, that was the other one that just came to mind. I'd finished writing a book. We'd gone to London, me and my wife, to visit our daughter who lives in at the time was living in Blackheath. I was just coming to the end of writing the book, took my laptop with me, and I did exactly that. We got off a train. I left it on the train. Thank God, as we got off, my wife Diane said, "Where's your laptop?" I said, "Oh shit!" You can imagine. She ran back onto the train and thank God managed to grab it just before the train left.
Wow, that could be very nasty.
Oh.
Right, okay, this is a favourite question for all the readers as well, actually, and other authors. But how do you feel about reviewers getting in touch, offering advice to you, and how do you mentally deal with some of the shocking reviews that inevitably you're going to get when you've had a little bit of success? So we'll start off with John with that.
When I started, it all felt very, very personal, a bit like someone criticising your baby. But to be honest, as time has gone on, I value everyone's reviews, whether they like the book or not. I realise I can't please everyone. Some people are going to love the book, some are going to hate it, and that's fine. If people are reading it, I'm happy. And as I say, if people want to be critical, if they feel the need to say however they feel about the book, whether it's wonderful, whether it's awful, that's fine with me. Not a problem.
Owen?
It depends. I don't mind the criticism. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. As John says, as you go on, you tend to be able to not be affected about it. One way or the other, actually, someone tells you you're a genius, you don't instantly believe them the way you would want to. And if they tell you you're terrible, you're not as affected with that either. What is more difficult is sometimes how the criticism is couched. Some people are very, very rude, very needlessly direct. They don't realize that to play the piano very badly takes hundreds of hours. And to write a book, even a not very good book, takes somebody all kinds of time. And it's a funny thing about books. Years ago, I was speaking to a woman, and I said to her, we were talking about writing. She'd read one of my books, and she was very complimentary. And I said, "Have you ever thought of writing anything yourself?" And she looked at me and shrugged her shoulders and said, "Owen, where would I find the time?" No, that's all it is. All you need is the time. You don't need no other skills required. Have you learned to play the oboe yet? She wouldn't have said, "But where can I find the time? I'll scale the north face of the Eiger." Time would not be the issue. But when it comes to writing a book, where would I find the time? So I realise that people may not have, and nor should they, or need they, have a tremendous grasp on what writing a book, even a not very good book, takes. So more sanguine about the whole experience than I once was.
Yeah, I mean, I've got an hour to learn the oboe tomorrow, so I better tick that bad boy off.
What with that?
I mean, I remember the first bad review is quite a shock 'cause it's so personal. But I guess it's like, death of 1,000 cuts, and then you realise you survived and it didn't hurt so much. And if you want people to write reviews and encourage that, I probably learned the most from a few real ropey reviews where I suspect it's probably authors writing it and they've been so critical and massive review. Haven't got time to write their own book, but they've managed to write a novel on how bad my book was. But there've actually been a few gems in some of that. So and then it's just part of the thing where it is now. I guess it's part of anything nowadays. Is people happy to? It's easier to pull something down than it is to build something. So I just kind of put it. It's fine.
Most people are great on that. You're never going to.
Someone's asking if I want to go and live with them in North Carolina, but what's that, John? Carry on.
I said most people are great. Most reviewers are great and do write with good intentions. You get a small number of people who are vindictive. You get a very small number of people who write awful reviews for everyone's books. I have got one gem who writes a very similar review for all my books every time one comes out.
Your personal stalker.
Yeah. And they got their own reasons, I guess. But the vast majority of people write in good faith, don't they? They review a book in good faith and they give an honest opinion, and that's absolutely fine. I did.
Yeah,
I can remember.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Owen saying that if someone says you're a genius, you can't take that too seriously. If someone says you're an idiot, you shouldn't take that too seriously either. Like I can remember with the first book I did, I had two reviews right next to each other. The first one said something along the lines of "This is the best psychological thriller I've ever read," and the very next review said something along the lines of "This is the worst psychological thriller I've ever read." And I suspect neither of them were right. But if it's
you average
the two, then you're okay.
Someone actually messaged me one day with a 4-word message. They distilled all my hundreds of hours of effort into 4 words. They said, "Read your book, crap."
Sorry about that.
One other woman, one time we had a conversation with her, and she took a long time telling me how the book should have ended. And then when she finished, she waited for me to speak, and I didn't speak. She said, "So, are you going to change it?"
No.
And I said, "No." She said, What? Don't you value the opinions of your readers? I said, "I do value them. And when they write their own books, they can have any ending they like." I hear what you say. It's the way it is, You can't please everyone, can you?
You can't. And the worst, this made me laugh thinking about it. The worst review I ever had was from an American guy. And the review was, "If I ever meet this man in person, I'm going to kick him in the balls."
Nice.
That was the review.
Yes, no American studies for you then. So, right, cool. Someone's a cracking question there. Do either of you have? Sorry, do either of you have a tradition? Sorry, Owen, you say. Do either of you have a tradition that you do when you're finished with writing a book?
No, I don't. I don't do anything. I'm always mightily glad. I read somewhere that Stephen King never wanted his books to end because he was having so much fun. That isn't my experience at all. I'm quite glad. I'm not glad the book's finished. I'm glad I managed to take it to the end, because when you begin a book, I don't know about anyone else, but when I begin a book, there's no certainty that I can write 90,000 words. There's no certainty I can do, and with me anyway, I can do that. One time when I started writing it first, when I wrote the short story, trying to get someone to look at it. And my wife phoned up some agent in London, and the girl on reception was very kind. She listened and she said, "What stage is the short story at?" And Christine said, no, he's written it. It's finished. He's just padding it out. And I'm developing it. I'm developing it.
Dash padding it out.
Glad when the book finishes, actually.
What about you, John? Do you night on the town, or is it just relief and know that editing process is next?
No such luck, really. I remember Carolyn Mitchell, who writes some great books, saying that it can feel quite euphoric to actually finish a book. It's a bit, the comparison she gave was it's a bit like climbing a mountain, and you've got to the top, and you aim at the top, but then you realise you've got to climb another one. You know,
or come back down, which could be the editing process.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, the editing can be tough, can't it?
Yeah, I mean I finish a book. It's a nice moment, but I am very aware that I've got the same again coming with editing it, and I enjoy that much less. And I only really celebrate now when usually after Sarah, for example, has cast her beady eye over it and not ripped the thing to pieces or something, and you think you're more or less there. But I mean, Jane Isaac was. I just noticed a post of hers up on Facebook, and you can get into this thing where you're not really celebrating any kind of any of the levels, are you? So it's a big achievement to get 90,000 words down. So you ought to be having a few drinks and a few pats on the back. I mean, that's why Facebook's good, isn't it? You can. Yeah. It's a lonely job, but you can have a chat with a lot of people. There's book clubs like Book and Tonic, UK Crime Book Club, and there's romance ones as well, where you can go on there and have a chat to people and get some sanity and balance to your life, sort of thing.
And there's some fantastically supportive readers and bloggers on places like Facebook. As you know, as yourselves, some of them are absolutely fantastic, wonderful people. I'm sure, like most authors, incredibly grateful to them for what they do, really. I think we're lucky as well with Boulder that we do get some great editing. I mean, I've been working with Tara on the last couple of books, and it's been an incredibly positive experience. Hard work, a lot of work as a result of the edits, but the books are much better for it, and that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
What I learned from editing is that English is clearly my second language.
Yes. Well.
Yeah, well, it's my first language, but you wouldn't know it. So, right, there's a few other good questions on there, so we can tie this in with other ones. So, start with Owen with this. So they've asked, like, what books do you like to read, but would you write any other books in other genres? But if you can tie that in with what are your hopes and dreams for your writing career?
When I wrote the first book, I sometimes tell this story, and sometimes I probably shouldn't tell it. When I wrote the first book and finished it, I was so surprised that I'd written it, and I was so pleased by how good I thought it was that I couldn't sleep one night, and I come downstairs and turned on the computer and started checking out what property I would buy in London. I settled on a snazzy little place in Maida Vale for £10 million. I thought, that'll do it, that's fine. Give me half a dozen of those. And nowadays, I think my ambitions work on several levels. I want to write something that's good, whatever that means. That's entertaining, that entertains me. I want to be a decent writer. I would like it to be as commercially successful as it can be. And I would like to come out the other end with enough energy to be able to start the next one.
Yeah, that's good.
John? Yeah,
it's very similar to Owen, really. You want the books, I mean, I think we all want the books to be successful and to be read by as many people as possible. That's got to be an ambition. And if most people like them, that's a bonus. I would love to see one of the books on the screen. I think that's a sort of common thing with a lot of authors as well. Yeah, that would be nice. There's been some fantastic Welsh crime dramas on TV recently. And yeah, if that ever happens, that would be, I think,
That would be good.
icing on the cake time, really.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I could probably cope with Netflix came calling. I think I mean, the nice thing is Owen's just got that just now. The obviously you I think with all authors you tend to move the goalposts. So there's a concern where you keep moving them, so eventually you're going to drop off your perch and miss the last penalty. But things like you just want to get your book finished, your first book finished, and then you want to find it published. Whether you have to publish it yourself, you want to hold it, and then you want a bit of success, and then you maybe want to sell a few more in maybe in America, and then you want to make it to the top 100, and you can find yourself ticking some of these off. And we've all been lucky enough to get there, and then. The works was Boldwood put some of their books in the works now. So going into the works, you can go into Waterstones. I think I took my book into Waterstones and put it on the shelf, which is cheating a little bit. But seeing your books all lined up in the works was fab. I had The Snow Killer became Il Killer della Neve about a year ago, which was a real buzz that was. And they've gone on Soul Killers now. They've changed the name, but I think it's called Death Doesn't Wait in Italian. There's some brutal reviewers in Italian, but it sounds quite poetic when they're nailing your book to the wall, which makes it slightly easier to take. But so, Owen, you've got your first one in Italy now, haven't you?
Yes, I have. And a guy, the brother of an old friend of mine, wrote to me the other day there with some exchange about something. And he said, I haven't read your book yet. It's Games People Play, isn't it? And I said, that's one of them. I said, but it's been translated, Games has been translated into German and Italian. So now you can not read it in 3 languages.
John, do you have a few yours done in Spanish or something, maybe? Or
I've got a few in the Czech language, and there's one been done in Hungarian at the moment. I think there's been a bit of a delay because of the whole COVID thing, lockdown thing. But that's in the sort of pipeline at the moment. I'd really like to have one done in Welsh, being a Welsh person. I found that's incredibly hard to achieve.
Are they? Is it just a rumor about them being very long letters and long words and things? That'd be a very long book, or
there's some truth in that. It's so few of us, really. I mean, it's only a small little country, isn't it? So we're not like England. We're about 3 million people in total. So. And only a percentage of those are Welsh speakers. So I guess it's a very small market at the end of the day.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing, isn't it? It's commercial fiction is where we've ended up, and at the end of the day, Bold would have got to make some money out of us. Otherwise, we're not doing it as a charity sort of thing. So
that's what it's all about at the end of the day, isn't it?
I guess the nice thing about being an author is that most careers you peak somewhere. Well, with sport, it's in your 30s, and probably a lot of other stuff in your 50s and 60s. But with writing, you can carry on going into, until the end, the bitter end, to a certain degree. Even like Terry Pratchett was, he's still writing stuff right at the death. So again, that's the thing. You've got to keep it going. You've got to keep writing. As I say, maintaining the standard, which I guess that's not easy. We all have books which haven't done perhaps quite as well as the one before, and which can be quite tough. But
that's
right, okay. Well, we're at 1:45, so the question's on the right there. So it's probably easier if we go on to the book and tonic thing, and if you want to answer those, but guys on there and just comment on any of those you want to answer. We'll finish off with one last question. So we'll start off with Owen with this. You've actually moved back from Crete, but if you could write anywhere, where would it be? You can have as much success as you like to get there if you want.
Well, I think what I would do is I would write where I am just now. You can't see it on screen, but just to my left is my writing desk, and outside there's a wood and a golf course. And yesterday we saw 2 kestrels. The day before that we saw a couple of deer. It's a really nice spot. So what I would do is I'd write terrific books from this location, and then go to all these faraway places, like Rio and Sydney and all that kind of thing. So if I could be tremendously successful writing a book right here in the room I'm in, then I could spend all the money going all over the world. That would be fun. The trouble with going somewhere far to write a book is you can't have both. You're either writing the book or you're seeing how fab it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, very much. Once you get, the best way to write a book is to write it as quick as possible, and you can't get away from that's 12 hours in a chair sometime, isn't it? Not swanning around on the golf course. But you were saying why did you move back from Crete?
Interpol.
I knew it.
I'm joking. It was time. We were there. We'd been there for about 16 years. All my books were written there, up apart from the last one, which is did I mention it was out in September? It was time to come back, time to reconnect with the family. The weather had changed down in Crete. Last summer was pretty horrendous, 40 degrees. I was in the pool once, didn't really enjoy it. Hard on the heels of 2 years COVID. We hadn't seen our family for 2 years. All these factors combined. We'd had that adventure. It was time to start a new adventure. And you don't want to leave it too late in life to be moving house. It's a traumatic experience on different levels. So we're quite happy we did it when we did. And we really love the house we're in. Also, living abroad isn't being on holiday. It's like you still need to do the washing and all, buy the food and all the rest of it. So it's not like going for your 2 weeks away to the sun and live in a hotel. It's a different kind of life. We'd had the adventure. It's time to come home.
Cool, good answer, John.
Yeah, I'm really lucky as well. Similar to Owen, really. We live in West Wales. We're surrounded by great countryside, lovely beaches. We live in a sort of 300-year-old cottage, which is, you can't see it from here, but I can look out the window. The estuary is sort of about 100 meters away. I can look across the water. There's a Norman castle on the hill. It's great place for swimming, great place for sailing. So it's, I wouldn't want to live or work anywhere else. And like Owen, if I can make a few quid to do a bit of traveling, then that's a bonus.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I'm lucky enough to live in Peterborough, so I don't need Sydney or Hawaii when I'm there. So I mean, I guess mine's slightly different. I'm a little bit younger than you guys, so my kids are still pretty young. So it's all kind of about them. I kind of always dream about just having some time just to I managed to write 20,000 words last week because just had a load of free time and the book had been festering for ages. And I was like, wow, I thought if I could do that every week, you could do a book in a month and then spend a lot of time traveling sort of thing. But I wouldn't, I'd just be here with the kids still. So there's no escape from that. But then you don't want to wish that away, do you? And so it's all about your time of life and balance and everything else. And people think that writing's easy, but it isn't. As I said earlier, you've got a lot of time sat on your ass on the desk. It's boring doing the editing if you've read that book to death. And you're balancing other stuff as well. It's very easy to focus. And then before you know it, you haven't done the exercise for ages. You haven't seen your friends. Yeah, and all that sort of thing. So, and that's why it's important for, hopefully there's a few people to watch this. For you guys getting in touch with us, saying you do enjoy our work, or if you want to give us ideas and stuff, that's great for us because I say that keeps us sane, keeps us going on. But right, we'll leave it there. Just gone a little bit over, but thanks for listening for everyone who has done. Thanks to John and Owen for joining me, and hopefully we'll do another one of these soon.
Yeah, thanks both.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, nice one.